Hey, GLP-1 plus size community. Before we jump into the podcast, please take the time to leave us a 5-star review on whatever audio platform you're listening to the podcast on. Share your story and how the podcast has helped you. This will help us get referred up in the audio platform so that we can reach more people that need our help, our support, and guidance from our doctors. Help us get loud and change things.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.
"20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise." That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you, based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Welcome to the Plus Size
Welcome.
Podcast.
I just colored my hair and I can tell it's so vibrantly purple.
It's gorgeous. I love when you first do it. And all of our listening audience obviously can't hear, but you should go to YouTube.
It's okay. Yeah, go to YouTube.
I want to drop this before I forget. 2 things. Okay, because I'll forget if I'm doing the get. Hey, y'all. All right, 2 things. We have had some people say, "Oh my gosh, like I want to ask." We have people send us fan mail. Just so you know, for fan mail, we can't reply back, which is just stupid, but we can't. So just know, like when you send it, we're going to start having a segment where we talk about like what was sent to us in fan mail. When it's
Yes,
nice.
I'm
When it's
excited.
not nice, I'm sorry, we're not going to feature that. But if it's nice, we will. But some people have said like, "Oh my gosh, like I can't pay and I'm worried because I want to listen to this." You don't have to pay. People that can pay and want to contribute to the movement and what we're doing and help, keep the podcast going and all of those different things, they do. They pay like $5, right? So you can. We're not going to gate knowledge from you. People who
No.
pay get the content early, and then people who pay also get like additional stuff. So like I have this thing on YouTube called My Moments with Mom, and I also have it on the audio for Moments with Mom, where Mom and I are kind of processing all of this and diet culture and what it means to us and stuff like that. Or we do some stuff around like when we see Senate hearings, we like to create reels that are like highlight reels, so you don't have to sit and watch all the grandstanding, which we all know I'm guilty of. Just things like that. So we're trying to create like additional content so that people will get value from spending that with us. But you do not have to. Okay, this is a free educational resource. I'm doing everything in my power to create relationships with sponsors and such to be able to keep it that way. So you do not have to. Okay, so that's all. I just want to make sure you know. Make sure all of you know too that are on audio know that every other Wednesday we do lives on YouTube so that you can come and engage with us. Since the podcast was featured on ABC Nightline and Bloomberg and GMA and all of that, I have more opportunities to speak about this. And
Yep.
if I don't hear from you, then it's very possible, I'm going to be very candid, for me to present my perspective, right? Which is what I live, right? Which is, a middle-class white woman, right? So I think it's important for me to hear from you. And when we do these lives, we pin your comments, we ask you questions, we want to know what you think. And I really want that. So please, if you would go subscribe on YouTube, that would help us out a
Yes.
lot. And
And
as
ask
an
all the
incentive,
questions.
yes, and as an incentive, we are going to do a giveaway. Or a love away or whatever the heck we can say.
Yeah. I
So
got bands.
we go we got all the Barbie Stanleys, the whole set. And so what we're going to do is in the link of this episode and all links going forward, we want you to sign up to be a part of our newsletter so we can like send you stuff, right? And then when you do that, I'll send you back a thing to get you to subscribe on YouTube. And those are the two things we need you to do to enter to win. And then we're going to do a live on YouTube and pick the winners, right? And you win a Barbie Stanley. Hello. That'd be so fun, right? So just know that's what's coming. That
This
now
is not a Barbie Stanley, but it's a Stanley and it's
I know,
fall.
my Stanley's in the other room. I have Barbie Stanley. I got the pink one. I should have it. It's fine. I'll do it
I like
later.
that retro one, the classic Barbie, the black and white.
Well, I
That's a
got
cool
your
one,
Barbie
too.
Stanley right over here next to me. That I
She's
got.
pretty.
I know she's cute. We gotta have lunch. You
Yeah,
know,
we
so I can
do.
like.
As far as I'm concerned, pumpkins in fall will be out until December 1.
Yeah, right. So you can't open
My
Barbie
sexy
until.
pumpkins are still out.
Listen, my pumpkins are right behind me.
Those
Like
are
my
sexy
pumpkins
too.
are staying out. I bought
Yeah.
blue pumpkins so that I could keep them. I kept the white ones. I'm keeping those all the way through the holidays. Pumpkin stuff. We eat pumpkin pie at Christmas.
You know what?
It's
You're right.
important.
And pumpkin cake, pumpkin trifle.
Sure.
Technically, a sweet potato everything too. Listen, if there was a sweet potato decoration, I would buy one too.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Enough. So anyway, we have a great show for you today. And we're so glad to have you here. Thank you for supporting what we're trying to do to get loud and change things. We love you so much. And I guess let's dive in. And eventually we'll make this a little more organized where we go over the fan mail. But like one of the biggest fan mail was that. And then the other thing for the fan mail is some
So
people were
excited.
like, well, I want to tell you my story. You can. If you go to our website, which is theplussides.com, there's a thing that says submit your story. Submit it there. I'm not gonna lie, guys, there's a bunch of them. So I do the very best I can, but that's because so many of us struggle, right? And I'll keep the podcast going as long as I can to tell as many stories as I possibly can. So just know, but do I want you to submit it and tell it to me? Yeah, absolutely. Please do. Okay. So that's where you can go and do that. Okay. Fan mail covered.
I'm excited.
Me too. All right. Let's invite in our guest and we'll go from there. Well, hello, Jeannie. How are you?
Hi, ladies. How are you?
Well, it's crazy. I'm not gonna lie. We're recording a episode of the podcast every day this week. Except
That
there's
is crazy.
I know it is crazy. It's insane. But it's great. This is a great problem to have, and so we're just tired.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but it's great because it's happening. All the things are
Yep.
clicking, and we're so glad to have you come and help us and appreciate your contribution to this movement in many ways. And I hope that you will tell us all those ways. But I would like to give you the opportunity and the space. Like I talk a lot about how traditional media, they're on a time limit, right? Like and even, social, it's really hard to tell a compelling story in 90 minutes or 90 seconds, not 90 minutes, 90 seconds, right? It's really difficult for that. So because of that, we wanted to have this space. And I know you've been watching the podcast for a long time. So
I have.
I know. So I would love
Thank you.
to take it, take it. And, I know a lot of people say kind of sometimes they just feel very unburdened to be able to share. And everybody listening is going to be able to relate and just, I think, tell us everything. And then anything
All right.
that will be helpful for anybody out there listening that's just getting started or on the journey and is going through all the mental stuff that we know is a thing.
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. And
You're so
I was excited. I've debated so long whether I want to share my story because we all know the bias out there and how that can affect us professionally and all kinds of things. And I have an exceptional, weird, crazy history, which is sort of relevant. And so I've hesitated to share that. But today you get it. I'm giving you the whole story. There's sex, drugs, and politics.
I love weird. Just
I made
FYI.
notes. I tried, but I'm not even going to tell you how long the first run through took me. So I'm going to hopefully not vamp too much and get going on it. And here we go. I have been obese since childhood. My highest weight was 400 pounds.
The lowest area I kept it in my adulthood was around 220. I had a few bumps that went a little lower, but I was able to keep it between 220 and 275 for a long time. And when I was at my lowest weight and more normal looking, I accomplished quite a bit. I've gone now almost 2 years without a gain. Never in my entire life had a steady weight. And as I go through my story, you'll see I've been dieting since early childhood. And the reason I wanted to share this today is because I want to touch and talk to the people out there that have my story, that have the early childhood obesity, who got to be supersized, who dealt with everything that comes with, because due to my very unusual circumstances, I really was able to internalize and learn how it wasn't my fault and things that had gone wrong that were completely out of my control that impacted. And there are reasons that little kids overeat. And in the words of the great Roxane Gay, my problem is what all the gym bros talk about is I was hungry. I ate too much. I popped out of the room looking for an amuse-bouche. I loved food and loved to eat and could not control it. And that part of obesity, I think we all avoid talking about because of the shame, because of the moral side of it. Now, I'm not going to go down into the philosophy and the philosophical side of all of the religious reasons, ethical reasons why gluttony is considered terrible. And so we always default to things like hormones and genes and stress and food supply and all of those things, which, to be clear, are relevant and very important to all of our journeys, but we give short shrift to the overeaters out there. And I'm here today to represent those who overeat.
Overeater in the house. Kat and I are both overeaters.
I know you guys are, so I figured you would be open to it. I'm going to try to keep my notes.
OA member.
So the first thing I'm going to do is a little bit of lesson on what I've learned over life about hunger and what it really means. And hopefully a little bit of this will give you an area to research a little bit. So hunger is part of our bodily imperative system. It's part of one of our 4 survival systems, and our bodies are built to defend it. When something goes wrong in that system, we can only focus on that system. Now, there's evidence out there that this originates in damage to the hypothalamus. It's not clear. It's not been studied very well. But what we do know is there are structural differences. And every single time someone with that kind of damage diets and loses weight, it damages it just a little bit more. So if your obesity is one of those early on and that you've gained and lost and gained and lost and gained and lost, you're not imagining things. It is harder every single time. Were you going to say something, Kat?
I was like, yeah, it was me. Gained and lost.
Oh, okay, good.
Lost a lot at age 12. Yeah. So go on.
Yeah. My last point on all of that is you can live a perfect life, a perfectly healthy life now. Let's say the reason you're fat is because you ate too many Doritos for 30 years. You can stop eating Doritos and eat the perfect Mediterranean diet, and it does not fix the thing that is broken. I know, because I have spent my entire life trying to be perfect and trying to do all of that. And the way I was able to do that is I need to kind of get into my life. I've been pursuing weight loss early on. I had some unique circumstances that allowed me access to things that most people my age with childhood obesity never had access to. And so there were 3 parts to my family. And they're important as you see as I go through my story. My grandmother on my mother's side, my mother's mother was, I call it Arkansas upper class. They were fairly wealthy for the area and for the moment in time. My grandfather was a pediatrician. He opened pediatric clinics in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and I was surrounded with all of the medical stuff. I was surrounded by someone who was medically trying to help me from a very young age. And my grandmother herself was beautiful. She was skinny. My mom was skinny. My aunt was skinny. That whole side of the family, super skinny. I've got pictures of me sitting there at my 400 pounds with all these little tiny ladies. And it was rough because of the rest of my family situation. I spent most of my formative years and most of my weight loss stuff was with that side of the family. Now, my dad's side of the family, blue collar, backwoods Arkansas, worked in a factory, overweight in the family. Now, my parents had me when they were 16 and 17, teenagers, still in high school. And this was the late 60s, early 70s. So have you seen that show Shameless on Showtime? It was not dissimilar to that. There was parties, there was a lot of drug use, and there were a lot of weapons for some reason. I was a kid. I don't know how that all tied in together. And that all tied in to politics. For instance, my grandmother, the wealthy one, she shared a box at the races with Bill Clinton's mother. And my aunt went to high school with Bill Clinton and went to prom with Bill Clinton. And throughout my life, that kind of was a thread through there. And it bled over into my dad's side of things. And I'm telling this story because it's election day and it's a little election story. My dad and Bill Clinton's brother would go to the poll, which was my school. And I remember there's a trunk sitting open. And so every time someone came out and they said they voted for Bill Clinton, they got a joint.
Want the fastest working GLP-1? For half the price, Ro now offers FDA-approved weight loss injections cheaper. With results you can see faster. Lose 15% of your weight with the formula from Eli Lilly that hits not one, but 2 hormones to curb hunger and nausea. Weight loss faster, confidence higher, price cheaper. See if you qualify at ro.co/TV.
So, that's how I grew up. Then, okay, I lost my thing. Okay, so got the 3 sides of the family, but the doctor side of the family was where all of my weight loss examples originated. The first, and I'm going to tell a few examples. The first thing I remember is a Weight Watchers meeting. I was a little kid, dank basement, red carpeting, chain smoking, and that is where I learned about calories. I hooked onto that like it was a lifesaver. I'm like, oh my gosh, calories. And I was a calorie savant at that point. And for some reason, we just talked about French fries a lot. I don't know why. I think my grandmother might have talked to him ahead of time and said, keep her from eating French fries. So then when we would leave the Weight Watchers meeting, we would go out into this room that had these big it looked like sanding belts that would go around our waist, and we'd have to shake for half an hour. And it's like, I was a little kid, like with the chain smokers shaking the fat off. And so that was good. Then like another example of like how, people used to treat fat kids. My grandmother would drive me around in the mornings to the school bus stop because on the corner, there was a really fat little girl who was always waiting for the bus to go to school. She would stop and point at her and say, look at that little Lotta. You don't want to be that. And we would do that several times a year and watch that girl growing up as I don't know how that ended, but there was a cartoon when I was little, a comic book called Little Lotta. And it was a little girl who had too much appetite and she ate too much. And I think like, I don't remember this part, but I looked it up when I was figuring out if I wanted to talk about it. And I think she would eat and eat and eat and get a superpower. And then anyway, so then my grandmother would use that to try to control me, to try to keep me from eating less. Like, you want second helpings? All right, little Lotta. Or like, hey, do you really want to have that cookie, little Lotta? All of that type of stuff. Because, and Kat, I know you know this because you're the same, we're in the same kind of area of the world and growing up at the same time. Is like shaming and humiliating children was pretty much how we were raised. Like, that's how you controlled people and children. And my grandmother controlled that with that type of thing, as well as the purse strings for the family, because my parents were the shameless, poor, drug using alcoholics and drug addicts. And so grandma, she would try to get me clothes, but they were very hard to find. I was very, very large. Couldn't find clothes. I remember really clearly one time she was having a big party. And the Clinton people were going to be there. It's like a big, important party. And I couldn't find a dress. Like, we went everywhere, nothing in town that was appropriate for status climbing, skinny, white ladies. And so she's like, well, you're just going to have to stay up in the room during the party. And there were going to be other kids there. And I was so excited. So I had to stay up in the room during the party. It actually worked out because I love to read. And so I got to go to the library and get all the books I wanted and whatever. But it was, she used that and said, okay, so now maybe this will help you not eat so much, because then you can find clothes and then you can go to a party. So you can imagine how all of this type of stuff influenced me later in life and helped me become like the health nut and cuckoo that I am today. All the things we did OptiFast, MetaFast, Jenny Craig. At one point I was convinced I had Prader-Willi syndrome, and I called up my grandfather's clinic. Hang on. I called up my grandfather's clinic and made an appointment, and just showed up one day, like trying to talk to a different doctor to tell them I had Prader-Willi syndrome. And I got in big trouble for that one. So I yo-yoed all through school. By the time I was in high school, I did 300 pounds-ish, and it was awful. Like, my biggest regret in high school was that my suicide attempt was a fail. Like, I was miserable. And towards the end of high school, I'd been in band and I was really good at it. And my band director said, you know, if you want to go to college, we can get you into college. You're really good at this. You can have a full ride scholarship. And I'd never even thought about like that I would go to college. Frankly, I was just like, I just need to have life end. And I wasn't going to graduate from high school because I never went to high school. Like, nobody in my immediate family made me go to school. I didn't have to do that. Like, is the sky blue? Yep. I don't want to go to school today. Great. So I had half the amount of attendance my senior year of high school, and almost didn't graduate. But this band director petitioned. He talked to the school board. They got an exception. And an interesting note is auditions at this point in time were blind. So every time, so I had success in music and was able to get a full ride scholarship to college because they were blind auditions. And that started a whole theme on how I would accomplish things later in life. It was like a big light bulb, like, oh my God, if no one's looking at me, look what I can do. And so, long story short, went to college, full ride scholarship, freshman year. And here's where it gets a little tough. And the reason I'm telling this story again is because I want those who grew up and who cannot control their appetite and really like, I need to do the work. I need to change my behavior. I want you to know that even with everything that I'm about to tell you, all of this was in place before that. So freshman year of college, my parents are picking up my stuff from the dorm. While they were doing that, my brother committed suicide. He also was large like me, and he had seen one of the bullying aspects that I had gone through, and he was afraid he was going to have to take off his clothes in gym. Okay, so that happened. Then a month later, my dad overdosed and had a heart attack and died. And then a month after that, my grandfather died from lung cancer. And then in February, so we're talking a 3-month period of my life. In February, my mom was in a drunk driving accident. She was the driver, and she became a quadriplegic. So that was my freshman year of college. I kept going into college. The summer after that, the diet I did, this is where you start to see how I went so deep into dieting and so deep into health, because control issues for, unpack all that, right? So I got a job at the shoe factory my dad had worked at. They kind of gave me a pity job, and it was at night where no one saw me. And I put together reports and did things like that and leave them on the desk. But there was a huge cafeteria that had vending machines, and this was very exciting to me. So for an entire summer, and we've talked a little bit about how much touch of the tism, one of my, how you eat the same foods over and over again kind of thing can happen. What I did in however long that summer was, every single day, I didn't eat during the day. When I got to my job at night, I would have 1 Snicker bar, 1 bag of microwave popcorn, and as many Diet Cokes as I could afford. And I went into my sophomore year of college looking pretty good. So it was considered a great success. That didn't last long. Everything raised and went on the yo-yo, so to speak. Let me see. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward because we're getting long here. I'm on the yo-yo for my entire life, and I'm going to talk up until I got married when I was 40. I made a quick list, and I'm going to go through it really fast like we're doing a poetry reading. All the things I did. And note, during my life, I gained and lost 100 pounds over 7 times. And that doesn't even touch the probably 100 times I gained and lost little bits here and there. So here we go. Gastric bypass, overexercise, keto, vegan, macrobiotic, HCG, food is medicine, whole foods, leptin reset, Dave Asprey, Gary Taubes, grass-fed, whatever, ice baths. I've taken a lot of ice baths. Michael Pollan, investigating regenerative farm, share of a cow, Jason Fung, the obesity code, fasting. I took a lot of classes. I was able to get into several different schools. I took classes in neurobiology. I took classes in psychology, in sociology, in lipidology. I wanted to figure out, like, my entire life's passion was figuring out what the eep was wrong with me, because I knew it wasn't a choice. I knew it wasn't something I was doing. Let's see. I lost my track. Okay, here we go. So after all of that, I got married when I was in my early 40s and had found a husband who was equally into fitness and all of that. And we had a perfect life. We had a perfect, healthy life. And my son was born. He could not have grown up with a better lifestyle. By that point, we had money. We were white. We lived in a great area. Like, we moved to Boulder, Colorado because it was the healthiest city in the United States. We bought houses so my son would have a 20-minute walk to and from school every day. Like, there was the poor kid, and we had all of our hippie healthy friends. My husband was an athlete, so I had plenty of those around. And there were no cupcakes. There were no sugar at parties. There was none of that. And when he turned 8 or 9, same problems. And that's when I knew. That is when I knew. And I knew I had to have a turnaround. So I had, for the last 5 years after he was 8 or 9, I was just like, okay, we're just going to be healthy and fat. That's it. There's no choice. There's no choice. And I was finally able to work through all of my issues because he was getting overweight and I could not love anybody more. And so that helped me heal a lot of things. And then the GLP-1 medications came along 2 years ago. And now I'm at 170. And I've been there 6 months now. And my son is in his senior year of high school, and he's a badass. So that's it. That's my story.
Wow, that was a story.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Damn,
That was
girl.
the short version.
Wow. I mean, geez. Like, I
It just
think
goes to show. Yeah,
I
just
do think
it
it's
made me think of
interesting.
hereditary. You know, obesity is
Yeah.
hereditary.
Yeah.
It is. And like, so often when we're threatened and like people are being mean to us, like I see this online all the time, like your gut reaction is like, I need to prove myself.
Yes.
Right. So we fall back on hormones, on these are things and things. And the reality is, I think it's for a lot of us,
Yeah.
we do eat too much, right? We do need to eat less. And
Yeah.
yes, there are absolutely people who have hormonal issues that even when they eat really, really low calories are not losing weight.
Yes.
And we don't know all the ways any given person, all the little pieces of it, right? And it's when you get into the moral side of thing, it really brings into question free will.
Yeah.
Because that's a whole other podcast though. So
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and we'll have another one. Yeah. I think, so true. I mean, Kat and I have always been really open that we overeat. Like, we both have binge eating disorder, have for most of our lives. Like, we talk about it very openly. And there are people that say, no, like, I eat like hardly anything and I'm still this weight. Right. And that's why we talk about like those different obesity can look a little different, right? And everybody. But for sure, like, I think that what my concern always is, and like I did a clap back the other day, that girl who was clearly talking about people with Ozempic being mad for views.
Mhm.
Guys, I made that video because I've been going through a big transition. Y'all know. I mean, everything is on this journey. Right. And I made that video and I was mad. I was a mad Ozempic girl. And I sat with it. And then I was like, I don't feel good in my soul about that. Like if I'm gonna make a content, it's not gonna be to shame or demean someone else. Right. I want to make content that's gonna people go, right. And
Right.
so I took it down. And like I think that there's a lot of things around that but people do, there is this like this misconception, right? I think out there ultimately that we are taking this medication to force us into a calorie deficit. And
Right.
we can't do it on our own. And that must mean that we're gluttonous. That must mean that we're fat and all those moral things that we
Right
discussed,
there.
which we do talk
Moral,
about. We talk about
moral
the podcast all
things.
the
Yeah.
time. Yeah. And I think that for sure is a misconception, because ultimately, like if it was just about that, there are lots of things that we could take, right? There are lots of things that we could do, and they would be cheaper and easier to get, right?
I have
And
done them all.
right,
Yes.
and without all
Mhm.
the stigma, we could do all that, but ultimately, like you get to this place, and I definitely want to talk about it today with our special guest, where you may be like at a weight, and like I think Kat and I talk about this for sure, like, and I've been talking about it lately. I think I'm in maintenance. Here's the thing: my maintenance is 230 pounds,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And okay, right? Because my
Mhm.
numbers are good, my sugars are controlled, my inflammation is controlled, and I'm not gaining. I'm not gaining. So I think I thought or hoped that maintenance for me would be under 200 pounds. I never really considered that like a
Mhm.
probability or option, because I have always been big. Jeannie, I'm the
Yes.
same.
Yep.
I've always been like this. So I don't, but there are people in our community that were very large and are thin. Like,
Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
And watching the TikTok
Skinny.
has not been good for me in that sense,
Yeah,
because
me
I
neither in
so
that
it
way.
just
Yeah.
added a whole other layer of like, damn it, I failed at this, right?
Same. Yeah.
Because I call it hostage maintenance. I have not been able to get below 170, and that's fine. I'm just accepting, I went through all the
Yeah.
steps of grief or whatever for,
Yeah.
that. And it can be disappointing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And yet it is not a moral failing. And yet everyone is not going to respond. The
Yeah.
problem is our distaste for fat people in the
Mhm.
media and
Yes.
in the world,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? Because what about, like, this is one I struggle so hard with this, with the before and after pictures, right? Because I want to honor everyone. And we talk about like, hey, what about the fat acceptance movement? I'm like, no, this is fat acceptance, right? This is accepting that there's something medically wrong with you and you can fix it.
Yes.
If someone else doesn't get it, and it's exploited so hard on like my 600-pound life. They always pick the
Yes.
people who have the out of control appetite. Those are the people who get shown, are the ones who, and then we know, and this
Yeah.
is a whole other tangent.
They're
I've studied
completely shut
torture.
down. Yeah. Mhm.
I've studied torture and
Yeah.
how our bodily imperative system reacts to long-term starvation and that type of
Yeah.
thing. Like something has gone cuckoo up
Yeah.
there in that section of our brain, period.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's exploited. It's still exploited so hard. And the reality is somehow we all have to turn the lights on. We all have to make these medications available. And those before and after pictures help that.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yes.
it's all that. And I know you and I have said this. Do you want to be right, or do you want to get ahead? Do you want
Yeah.
to be right, or do you want to further the cause?
Do you want to change?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm here today amongst all of the
Right.
controversy because we all, three of us, and I know I've talked to Sabrina, I've talked to Jay, I've talked to other people. We all want the same thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
no
do.
matter what size you get down to, because I will say confidently, like here, like yes, I am the heaviest girl on this group on the podcast, everything. But I'm just gonna be fluffy fit.
I don't think so. I think you and I are pretty close.
Kat, you
I'm like
wear it well,
245,
girl.
248. It's the muscle. It's the muscle.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
I have to
You're,
say this because I went to my personal business. I went to my lady parts doctor. I
Yeah.
went to my gynecologist last Monday, and oh my gosh, just wait till you hit perimenopause, Kim.
Mm.
I have the most freaking standing doctor. Because I told her, well, at one point in time, I was 320, and now I'm down to this. And she said, I said, but now this year has been work to not even gain anymore. Because I went up a little bit, but then I went back on my Prozac. And
Mhm.
she was so understanding. She said, well, maybe the reason why, first off, you're in perimenopause, you're going to gain like 10 pounds overnight. And
Yeah.
you're going to be, where the hell did it come from? And two, you are on an antidepressant. So
Yeah.
it's very hard for you now to, I had never been so understood by a doctor.
That's
You need to
great. I need a new
That
dog.
is great.
We know what mine was like. So that's great. I'll
and
drive.
she said,
I'll
this is
drive that dog.
fine. You, if you know, you've lost 70 pounds. So this is
It's a
fine.
huge win. Yeah. But I think that, and I'm hoping like people that are watching it, right, like understand that, and I do think it was really good. And I want to talk with Dr. Rentea about this too. But I think it was really good recently, like Dr. Albert did this live where he was talking about like what your set weight, you still have set weights, right? And he was saying like kind of where you end, like whatever your body kind of hits that homeostasis, right?
Mhm.
That there's not a whole lot you can do about that. Like you can eat the things and you can move the body, you know? But he was just like, and then I want to ask, cause I like, you know, I like perspectives, right? But like at some point there's an acceptance of that. Right. And I think that, but I'm telling you, the minute I make a piece of content about it, and I've got one in my drafts, the minute I do, people are in my comments telling me to share my macros, to how often am I exercising? Am I doing
They want to
strength?
solve your problem.
Because they want to,
Yeah.
well, I think it's two things. Like one, they want to help, right, and solve the problem. And two, they don't want to admit that they may be like me. And you know,
That's what it is. They don't
That's a
want
very
to
good
be.
point.
That's what I think it is.
yeah. And it's scary to them, right? Like that would be scary to me if I thought that. You know, so without further ado, let's bring on Dr. Rentea to talk about this because I think this is like a really good topic.
I'm so excited.
Right? So let's bring her in. Oh, welcome to the stage. Huzzah. Plus size.
Hi. Listen, what we've been talking about, I was like, yes, yes, yes to all of it. So many great things. Thank you for sharing your story. Like
You're
it's
welcome.
very, very powerful.
Ah, powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very powerful. Well, Dr. Rentea, for those who don't know you, and I don't know why that would be, but could you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you help people?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me on the podcast. I've been a fan from day one. Kim contacted me like when she was starting. I was like, this is an amazing idea. It's a lot of work, but it's needed. So I'm Dr. Mattea Rentea. I'm a board certified internal medicine and obesity medicine physician. I own and operate the Rentea Metabolic Clinic. It's for residents of Indiana, Illinois. It's a telehealth, really 4-pillar obesity medicine clinic where we really address all aspects of health, not just, here's a medication. But I am Kim, I kind of see, Kim, Kat, everyone on here. I really got onto TikTok and started to advocate more because it was really interesting years ago. No one was talking about how there were treatments, how this wasn't our fault, how there, all these different nuances. And it's very interesting because I'm working with patients all day long. So we see studies and things like that, but then there's also like the practical, what we see. And so I think that's good too, to bring all that in and to just keep forwarding the conversation about health.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's very true. And in the beginning, and I think, and I mean, as someone who's been doing this quite a while, right? In the beginning on TikTok, especially, we were all focusing on how many pounds a week, right? How many pounds, how many inches, because people have told us forever, including doctors, that our problem was the weight and the weight needed to go and the weight, and then everything else would come if the weight went. And it was because of all of these things that like Jeannie was bringing up, right? And ultimately, it's not just that, right? Like it's always been about health. But in the beginning, when your whole life people have told you that's your problem, then that's what your focus is.
Yeah,
right?
and I think one of the other things that seems to be understood in the diet culture is that you have agency over perfect health.
Yeah.
We don't. Life doesn't deliver that. Not for anyone. We don't have that agency. We don't
That's
get
truth.
to just
Yeah.
engineer perfect health. All we
Yes.
can do is play the card hand we're dealt.
Hey Plus Siders, we're so glad that you were able to tune in for part 1 of the episode. Part 2 will be posted next week. We look forward to seeing you then. Have a great week, and remember, you're not alone. It's not your fault.
20 seconds a week to lose 20% of your weight in a year with diet and exercise. That's the power of GLP-1s through Ro. Ro helps find the medication that's right for you. based on cost, availability, and your weight loss goals. Losing weight with GLP-1s is possible through Ro.
Are you interested in understanding GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro? Then join us on the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, the groundbreaking podcast helping people change their lives one episode at a time. The Plus Sides podcast is a disruptor. We're breaking down barriers, smashing stereotypes, and sharing inspiring stories that'll leave you feeling informed and empowered. Join us every week to learn from doctors who are specialists around GLP-1 medications like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. They'll provide you with science and facts to validate these incredible stories. But that's not all. We'll also bring you the voices of the GLP-1 Mounjaro TikTok community, real people who face the challenges of obesity-related diseases and disorders and discovered the incredible plus sides of GLP-1 medications. Our episodes are filled with heartwarming stories, laughter, and moments of triumph. You'll connect with our amazing community members who are reclaiming their health and experiencing their fullest lives. Are you ready to embark on a journey of discovery and empowerment? Tune in to the Plus Sides, Cracking the Obesity Code, and together we'll change the narrative around obesity and end the stigma. Subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform and join our incredible community. Let's celebrate the plus sides of life together, because every story deserves to be heard. Every life deserves to shine, and everyone deserves access to expert knowledge and medication. The Plus Sides Podcast. You're not alone. It's not your fault.